Why, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Naviant Solution Spotlight on the topic of records management. We'll just get started. See if anybody joins within the next few moments or so. My name is Guy Schrader. I am manager of sales engineering here at Naviant. Have been working with Naviant for just under 15 years now and have nearly that amount of time with the OnBase product. So just a few housekeeping items before we get started here. Remember that you are muted at this point in time, so if you do wish to ask a question or communicate in any form or fashion, please use the chat box or the questions area within the GoToMeeting panel. And as always, we have a survey that will be at the end of this webinar. Please take a few moments to complete that to provide some feedback on this particular session, as well as offering suggestions for future topics. We do take a look at those, and I'm always looking to find topics that you find interesting. I'd be more than happy to put together some different webinars based upon your feedback. So without any further ado, let's dive into this. We're going to talk about records management today. A little bit different order. For starters, let's talk about why you should consider it. We'll answer the question, what is it? You will see a little bit of a demonstration of the product, get into how much that it costs and how you acquire this particular module. So why should you consider it? I know this is a little out of order, but it made a little bit of sense to do this first. So think about all the records that you have. For starters, if there's no reason to keep that content after a certain period of time, it makes sense that you purge that, because that content, the storage costs do add up over time. Obviously, the more documents that you have within a system, there's also some performance concerns for your system. So if we're able to purge those records, your system should be able to speed up a little bit. But really, I think that those are the minor things, given how hardware and storage costs have decreased over time. Really, it comes down to the costs. If you have any litigation coming against your organization, can be huge. Not only from the legal perspective, but really just if you have to go through an e-discovery in any form or fashion. Some studies have said that it costs anywhere between $5,000 and $30,000 per gigabyte to go through that e-discovery process. Most organizations and most systems that I see have at least 100 gigabyte worth of data in their OnBase system. Most systems nowadays have multiple terabytes. So figure out that number, and again, if any audit or lawsuit comes against your organization, if you have those documents, you have to produce them for the court of law. If you work with your organization and your legal counsel and develop an information governance program and the entire plan to support that, and use that hand in hand with OnBase and the records management capabilities to defensively manage all of your electronically stored information, you can exclude all of those costs for e-discovery if you can quickly prove that this document that you are looking for has exceeded our retention plan, was destroyed on this particular date. If you can provide all that information, you don't have to produce that. If you can't, guess what? You do have to produce that. So it's very important from more so the legal exposure perspective, both financially and the pain to your organization, to be able to go ahead and generate those types of documents. That's really the why behind it. So what is it? OnBase Records Management controls the retention of all of your business records and the associated documents along the way. And we can really break that down into two separate components. Each of these function a little bit differently. Document retention is one of those products, and records management is another one of those products. And we're going to take a deeper dive into both of those areas. Let's start with the most basic, which is document retention. Excuse me. As we set up document retention, you set that up against your existing OnBase document types, or you could choose to go ahead and set that up against your document type groups. And when you set that up, your retention time frame starts based upon the date that the document was stored, or the document date that's associated with every single document that you have in OnBase. So it's strictly time-based. Every different document type or document type group is configured differently, so you can control that by the different document types. So when you use that document retention, you can set it up when a document now qualifies for review or purge. You can set it up for static retention or dynamic retention. And static is the most simple. When that time passes, based upon what you have configured for that document type, the system will recognize that and will automatically purge that document without any further review. Dynamic, after that time has passed, workflow or some other process can go ahead and further evaluate, or at least put that document in front of somebody's eyes to say yes or no, I do wish to purge this document, so that there's not the system blindly doing that destruction. So really, in summary, we're talking about individual documents, and then that retention period starts from the date that the document was stored or the OnBase document date. So here's just a graphical representation of what that looks like. You have all of your different documents that come in, and again, based upon the configuration, days, months, years, documents are identified, and as they're identified, they either go through that static purge, they're automatically deleted, or dynamically they can be sent off to workflow to allow somebody to view that. There are capabilities to run a VB script or an external processor against those documents, again to further qualify them, let your other systems or VB scripts to do that further evaluation to determine, is this a document that can be purged. So we configure that for every different document type, and as I mentioned just a few moments ago, X number of years, months, or days, or combination, document type by document type, or group by group, and set up whether that's static or dynamic for retention. Behind the scenes, your OnBase thick client is going to be running, and that can run within service mode with the RIM server switch running. That more or less tells that thick client on a daily basis, go out and identify those documents that qualify for the purge based upon the parameters for each different document type, and either purge immediately if it's set up as static, or if it's set up as dynamic, route these documents to a specific workflow, or execute a VB script, or send this to an external processor. So that's really how it ultimately works. So let's switch gears to records management. Records management is more robust in that we're talking about now managing a collection of documents, otherwise known as a record. So this uses the OnBase capability of folders, which all of you already have in your OnBase system. Not sure whether you're actually using them, but it uses folders, and more specifically managed folders. There's a way that you can set up your folders to say this is now managed to work with records management. The main difference here is that your retention time frame begins upon the posting of an event to that record, or again that collection of the documents. So think in the human resources world, you might need to keep all of your records pertaining to your employees for a certain period of time after that employee separates from the organization. While they're gainfully employed with your organization, that's an open record. We can add more, we can delete, so on and so forth, but as soon as they retire from the organization or are separated, that's the event to say, from this point forward, keep this record for 7 years, for example, regardless of whether that was a short-term employee or whether it was an employee that worked for 42 years within your organization. So a couple other considerations here. You need to take a look at what the trigger event is to create that record. And if anybody's familiar with dynamic foldering inside of OnBase, that could be based upon a specific document coming into the system, or it could actually be a workflow event that actually creates that record and effectively populates that managed record now a little bit differently than your normal file cabinets and folders. What are the potential events that you might have, and how will they be posted? So again, that separation event in the human resources world, think of your different types of records that you might have. There might be different kinds of events. So we can go ahead and set up those events and relate them specifically to the different managed folder types, and either populate that by manually going in and posting an event against that managed folder, or workflow can go ahead and send information to that folder to automatically post that event and do that in a more dynamic and automated fashion. The other consideration here is archival of different types of documents could run through that workflow automatically for you to post that event. For example, like a separation report, and we'll see that within the screenshot demo that I'll be showing you in a little bit. So here's a graphic kind of showing you how records management effectively works. Something needs to declare that record or effectively bring together all of the different documents under that single umbrella of the record. Once that declaration event takes place, we're managing effectively all of these documents together, not the individual, but the entire folder. At some point in time, that event is posted. Again, we mentioned how is that event posted. There's some variability there, high level of configurability, but once that event is posted, then the clock starts ticking, and we need to retain that folder for the prescribed period of time, at which point in time, when that time is passed, then we can go ahead and qualify that all of the contents of that folder for destruction. So we configure that. There's a number of additional components here for the configuration of records management, and this is the logical order to set things up. The different retention plans need to be set up. So that's saying we're going to be keeping things for 7 years versus 5 years versus some other type of retention plan. But that also gives us the ability to do some different things for saying, you know, keep this record open for X period of time after I post this event. So again, think in the world of a separation, that employee leaves the organization. There may be some trailing documents that need to be inserted into that folder automatically before we lock that record down, and then there could be no modifications to that record until we actually destroy that. We need to configure the different events. What are the different events? Separation, you can think of all the different things depending upon the type of records that you have. Defining the different hold reasons that you might have. There might be reasons why we have to put a record on hold due to litigation or because of an audit, or again, a number of different scenarios. So we need to set those up before we actually come in and set up the file cabinets and the managed folders inside those file cabinets. And then we'll associate to that folder the retention plans, the events, the hold reasons that we just talked about, so that those are specifically used for that particular folder type. The processing on the back end, again, somewhere we need to declare that record. We archive a document, or a workflow action is going to create that record for us. We need to post an event at some point in time to start that cycle, whether that's manual or, again, a workflow action could do that. And then again, that RIM server switch on the OnBase thick client is going to be running in the background, looking at a daily basis, saying, has any of my records now met the retention requirements? Do I qualify them now for purge? And we'll talk about some of the different options behind the scenes here. The final document disposition is another component that can be configured in a variety of different ways. As we were talking about disposing of a document, we can either say destroy the document, which in OnBase terms means just destroy the physical document only. So the image, the Word document, whatever the case might be, but we're keeping the metadata, the keywords, inside of OnBase, and if a user were to search for that in the future, they'd get a message saying this document was destroyed. Or we can say purge, which means we're going to delete those physical files as well as all of the keywords, but there are options to go ahead and keep a history log of all of those purged records within the transaction log, as well as some of your records management reports. So that again, if litigation comes around at some point in time, you can say this record was destroyed by this plan on this date, and it was all 100% automated in some form or fashion. Or there might be a situation where some of your record types are permanent records. You want to retain that. So you can truly set that up where it now becomes a permanent record. It can never be destroyed from the OnBase system without some major system overrides. So each of these different methods can route these records to workflow for approval and routing, just to make sure that we're doing everything that we need to be doing before that record is destroyed. So a little bit of a demo here, and for ease of use, I more or less set this up within a screenshot demo here. As we're talking about document retention, so backing up just to that time-based retention only, document type by document type. Within configuration, as we're taking a look at our different document types, I've selected my emergency contact form. There's a button for retention. You'll see that once you're licensed for document retention or records management. And as I go inside of there for any of my different document types, that gives me the option, starting from the left to the right, to set up my retention plan. By default, all of your document types will be set up with none, but you would set it to static or dynamic. Set the retention period, X number of days, months, and or years. It could be any combination of the three. And then based upon which date are we going to go ahead and use to go ahead and identify the appropriate purge date, the document date, or the date stored. That's really all that needs to happen by each individual document type, or that could be done by document type group. So effectively everything for HR would fall under the same classification. You just don't have to do it as many times if you do by document type group. So switching over into the OnBase Thick client, before I get too deep here, some of these processes can be run within the OnBase Unity client also. There are some more limited items that can actually take place within the OnBase web client. Just wanted to point that out. The screenshots that we have here are primarily all the OnBase Thick client. So you can see under Admin, Document Retention, there's the ability to manually run this process, and this can be scheduled to run once a day at a specific time, where it can go in and either run this first off evaluation processor saying which of these records qualify for purge based upon that time frame. If those records were found, depending upon whether we said static or dynamic, once somebody has reviewed that, or under the static world, these records are identified, go ahead and run that actual purge processor. So it kind of works similar to cold or dip if you're familiar with either of those two modules. Now, if you do use a dynamic retention type, those records that are identified can automatically be routed to a workflow that you would need to configure. And this workflow could be very simple, it could be very complex. It all depends upon your document retention plan and who needs to review this before those records are truly qualify for purge. It's a very simple one here where I happen to have 4 records on the left-hand side here. 5 records actually, no 4. Blurry eyes nowadays. We can view that particular record, and then we can give the user the option for different OnBase ad hoc tasks to potentially say, okay, mark this for a purge, so that when that purge processor runs the next time around, that document would actually be purged. Maybe I want to go ahead and increment this retention some period of time, whether that be another full cycle here. Maybe we want to add specific number of days, extend 7 days in this particular case. Maybe we want to mark this to say, nope, don't purge this. So again, that's that review, and based upon the actions here, that document will go ahead and qualify for purge or stick around for whatever period of time. At a high level, really, that's document retention. There's not a great deal to it. It's relatively straightforward and simple. Switching gears here now for records management, things get a little bit more dynamic in the configuration and the setup here. I'm not going to get into the setup because really there is a lot that takes place to set up the OnBase folders, to set them up as managed folders, the retention plans, the hold reasons, the different events, so on and so forth. So more of the focus here is going to be on how we actually do the manual management and some of the different options here for managing the records, again, the collection of the different documents. So here you can see that this looks very much like file cabinets. It is the same file cabinet, and based upon the permissions, typically only your records managers would be able to see the true records management folders, the managed folders that we have. And you can see I have 4 different folders here. If I select the declaration piece, could be handled in a number of different ways. Maybe I go out and grab a specific emergency contact form for Jason Knight here, and I actually import this document. Now watch as we import, turn your focus to the left side of the screen where I have my 4 current folders. When I import that document, the system can automatically create that new folder for us for Jason Knight, because behind the scenes I'm saying the emergency contact form is what actually creates that entire folder. And go in there, I can see that form was actually, that folder was now populated just with my emergency contact form. If the I-9, the W-4, the physical record was all there, we could go ahead and have those come in automatically also. So let's use Mary Nelson now as an example here, that if I'm going to manually be posting events, I just right click on that folder, come down and say post an event, which we can see here. That allows me to put in a specific date. By default, the system says here is your event date, but that could be backdated if you allow it. What is my event? Here I've created an event for closed separation. Click OK. And notice what happens to the folder. The icon changes. The gear more or less says that this is an open folder. The checkbox means that there's been an event posted and there's something happening now behind the scenes based upon my retention plan for that particular document. Now, that's how we manually post an event, but think of all the other ways that you bring documents into the system. Maybe if I'm running a cold process, which is now dealing with separation reports, and then I actually run that cold process, that can actually automatically create that event through workflow. So now after running that, I actually have separation reports that came in for Jane Harper and John Mallory, which posted that event. So now those are closed records, including our separation report. So it can be automated. It's not specifically cold. It could be dip. It could be any other mechanism that we're getting these documents in. And effectively, we're still using workflow to take that trigger document, in this case, that separation report, to say, all right, now go ahead and post an event to this managed folder to close it, start that retention period from this point forward. So looking at Mary Nelson here, besides posting that event, there may be a reason that we have to come in here and actually, if I can find my mouse, place a hold on that particular record. Audits, litigation, things like that might be reasons that we need to place a hold, and that can then lock down the contents of that folder. Notice my icon again changes to the do not go this way sign. But now, depending upon how you want that configuration set up, that could lock down that record where you cannot add any additional items, you can't delete any items, you can't make any modifications, including to the keywords. So that's another nice capability. Now, under the admin area, notice we have a whole section for records management, where we can do records management administration. Rather than me dealing directly with the folders, this records management admin allows me to come in here and say, okay, show me all of my on hold records. So now it's a filtering event where there's Mary Nelson for me. I can select that, I can right click, I can view the holds. It shows me more information pertaining to that hold that was there. It gives me the opportunity to remove it. So different way of managing this. But I can also right click and create different reports for those records that are in this view. Here it's saying here's my folders on hold, Mary Nelson, shows us the different dates, the hold place, the reason, so on and so forth. So again, gives us lots of information that we can generate these different reports. Maybe if I want to come in and now say, show me all of those records that are awaiting the records manager approval to go ahead and purge these records. So you can see I have these 3 separate records. I can go ahead and select any one of them, right click on it, and actually transition this record to final disposition. So again, lots of flexibility to allow that records manager to review these records before we actually go through the post and the purge. Really the case being here, the system is automatically identifying those records for us and presenting them to that records manager so that they can go ahead and take the appropriate steps. Once we transition that to final, in my case that says that destroys that particular record and I can move on. Now given there's different reports that can be created for records management, you can see all the different statuses for these folders that I can go ahead and create that. And just to walk through what that report looks like, here's my open records. If I had any closed or cut off folders or folders waiting approval, I can see them. I do have 2 records that are awaiting approval, Jane Harper and Mary Nelson in my particular case. I don't have any destroyed folders. I don't have any permanent folders, but I can also see my folders on hold. So these reports can be run at any periodic basis that we want to also. But depending upon how we set up the system, how you're used to dealing with your transaction logs today, we can actually create some reports, and one of your options once you're licensed for records management for transaction log type is my records management report. And you can see I have a bunch of different actions. I can go ahead and select them all and go ahead and create that report. Here it's showing us all of the records management actions that took place, transition of folders, hold events, different events being posted, so on and so forth. So all things said and done, you have that complete audit trail of what happened to these records. Again, in the case that you have litigation or audit, we can say this particular record was destroyed by searching through the transaction log on this date because it was part of this retention plan, so on and so forth, and that satisfies those legal requirements. Now, as I mentioned before, a lot of this can take place within the Unity client, and I just wanted to show you how that takes place. Inside OnBase Unity Client and Administration, we have the Records Management Administration, which is a similar interface to what we saw just a few moments ago. Here I'm looking at all my open records. I can select any one of these records, right-click on it, and say, all right, I want to post an event. Actually, going back one step here, might be a little bit easier because you don't have to right-click. You do actually have some options here to post the event right from the ribbon bar and things like that. So this works very nicely. They've done a good job in putting this into the Unity client. So with that, how much does this cost? Document retention itself, just that date-based retention on a document type by document type basis, is $10,000. Records management, that now event-based retention, is $20,000, but that does include all of the capabilities of document retention because there might be a case for both of those within your organization depending upon the types of documents. So records management gives you all of those capabilities. And just wanted to relay here that there are some related products. I talked about workflow here for that review of those records before they're actually purged and those document types based upon the document retention. So that comes into play here. Physical records management might also come into play also because think if you don't have those documents in OnBase, you have them in a box somewhere in some warehouse or facility. There is a physical records management module that allows us to track where these physical records are. And that actually all falls under the same document retention plan or the records management, where we can identify based upon the appropriate events or the dates noted within the physical records management module when these physical documents should be destroyed also. So it kind of works somewhat hand in hand. With that, we're wrapping up here. Contact your Naviant account executive if you are interested in this any further, want to find out more information or really see if records management is for your organization. And with that, I open it up for any questions that people have. I don't see anything in GoToMeeting as of yet for any particular questions, so I will stick around for a few minutes afterwards to answer any questions that you do have. But with that, on behalf of Naviant and everybody here, wanted to extend the warmest happy holidays to everybody. Thank you for attending this particular session. I hope that you have some time away from the office and can relax a little bit with the family. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like a white Christmas around here, but it is what it is. I'll take the warmer temperatures any day. And again, thank you so much for attending. I truly appreciate it. A quick reminder, please fill out that survey once the GoToWebinar ends. And like I stated, I will stick around for a few more minutes here to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you so much, and have a great remainder of the day, and happy holidays to you.